Chapter 2, Section 2A, we're going to talk about functions, right? Functions. We're going to talk tomorrow about domain, what domain of functions are, what the rules are for the exclusions, that sort of a thing. But when you talk about a function, you guys learned this in Algebra 1, for each x value, there's only one y value. So the rule that you guys learned is like if you're given an ordered pair, x values can't what? They can't repeat, right? X values can't repeat. Are you going to have a lot of questions that give you ordered pairs and ask if it's a function or not? No, but you need to understand the concept. What is new to most of us here is what's called function notation. No longer are you going to see y equals. What you're going to see is f of x. That is just a fancy way of saying y equals. Don't get that confused. Like, I don't know what that's. You might see g of x, h of x, m of x. All that is a fancy way of saying y. You're saying this is my function, and this is the name of it. So instead of y equals mx plus b, it'll be f of x equals whatever. So just notice, understand. F of x, g of x, h of x, whatever. That's just a fancy way of saying y. We'll go over that a little more. Don't worry. All right, I'm going to go through these for you very quickly. God bless you. Yes or no if this is a function. Where do I look? Which values? What cannot repeat? X. So look at number 1. Circle your x's. Do they repeat? No. So yes, this is a function. Number 2, look at your x's. Do they repeat? Yes, so my answer, no, it's not a function. All right, sometimes we get a little confused when we have these charts. I like to say, hey, if this is confusing to you, go ahead and write out the ordered pairs. Connect one arrow to the next. So my first ordered pair would be 1, 2, correct? 1 is attached to 2. What about the second ordered pair? -2, 4. And the third one is 3, 1. So look at your x values. Do they repeat? No, so yes, this is a function. All right, look at the next one. What is 4 connected to? 1, all right. What is -2 connected to? And what? 0. So what, and when I look at my x values, what do you notice? They repeat. So is this a function? No, all right. X values cannot repeat. So if you have ordered pairs or charts, your x's can't repeat. Graphically, you can tell if x's repeat. I'll show you here in a second. From a graph, a vertical line, if a vertical line intercepts the graph more than one point, the graph is not a function. Does anybody remember the vertical line test? All right, let me just show you what that means. I'll draw 2 quick little graphs. So say I have this graph. The vertical line test means I could draw a vertical line anywhere on this graph and it'll only intersect the red curve one time. So if I draw a vertical line here, how many times does it cross or touch that line? Once. What about here? Once. What about here? Once. What about here? Once. Think about, guys, a vertical line is what kind of a line? X equals or Y equals? X equals. So what you're showing here is that none of the X values repeat. So your answer here would be yes, this is a function. But if you had a picture that looked like this, and I drew a vertical line, what about if I draw a vertical line right there? How many times does that green line touch the red curve? 2. Touches there, and it touches there. That means there's 2 x values that are exactly the same. So is this a function? No. Your vertical line test, if you have a graph, you draw a vertical line. If it only intersects the graph one time, anywhere, then it's just, yes, it's a function. If it touches more, then it's not. All right, if you're given an equation, read what this says. From an equation, if y is raised to an even power, what's an even power? 2, 4, 6, 8. Okay, we get it. Or if y is an absolute value, then it's not a function. In any other case, it is. So if you're given an equation, we're going to go over some examples here in a second real quick. What's the only letter that you're concerned about? What does it say? Given an equation, from an equation, if what is raised to an even power or if what is an absolute value? Y. That's the only thing you care about. So when I get all of these equations, I'm going to highlight the y's. In letter or number 1 is y raised to an even power or inside of absolute value. No, why did I highlight the x down there? Just going down the line, right? Hang on. I'm actually going to change this last one. Okay, so look at number 1. Is y either raised to an even power or inside of an absolute value? No. So then, yes, this is a function. Look at number 2. Is y raised to an even power or inside absolute value? Yes, so my answer is no, not a function. If they asked you for the reason why, what would your reason why be? Because it's raised to an even power. Good. What about 3? Yes or no? No. How come? Raised to an even power. I changed number 4. Originally, your answer is yes, but the way that I changed it, is this a function? Yes or no? No. And what's the reason why? Because y is inside absolute value. When you're given a function, guys, you look at the y. If y is raised to an even power or y is an absolute value, it is not a function. All right. Moving along. God bless you. F of x equals a function. F of x. What is f of x the fancy way of saying? Y. Okay, don't forget that. Now, what does it mean to evaluate? If you're going to evaluate something, what do? We solve. Okay? So you're going to be given numbers to evaluate with. You have to algebraically figure it out. You guys have done this probably since the 6th grade, but it's just written differently now. You're going to plug in the number, the expression that's in the parentheses into the variable in the equation. Let me show you this. Do you see the 2 different equations that are given to you here? Yes? Why are there different letters, do you think? Not so much x and y. How many equations do you have? 2. So it's 2. If you had 3 equations, it might be h of x, f of x. It's just naming the equations. But what is f of x and g of x a fancy way of saying? Y. So if we look at like number 2. Let's do number 2. What does that question say? It says f of 1. And you guys are like, huh? Well, what that means is here is the equation I want you to use, and what number do I want you to plug in for all of the x's you see? 1. So which equation do they want me to use? The F1 or the G1? F. So I'm going to say f of 1 equals x squared plus 3x plus 1. This is in function notation. They're saying f of x. F of x is a fancy way of saying y. So what this question is asking you to do is plug in 1 for all of the x values you get and see what y equals. So instead of x squared and x, what number am I plugging in? 1. So I have 1 squared plus 3 times 1 plus 1. Where will you guys make mistakes here? Negative signs, saying 1 squared is 2. The math computation behind this is super easy, guys. What's 1 squared? So 1 plus 3 plus 1. 5. So you would answer and you would say f of 1. When I plug in 1 for x, what value do I get out? 5. F of x is a fancy way of saying what? Y. So if I was going to write this as an ordered pair, what would my ordered pair be? What did I plug in for x? I plugged in 1, and what did I get out for y? 5. You guys understand that? Okay, good. Good. I plugged in 1 for x. They're telling me what to plug in. Look at number 4. How's this one different? It's g. So what function do I need to use? The g one. And what number do they want me to plug in? 2. So I have g of 2 equals negative 2 squared plus 4 times 2 plus 1. When I'm evaluating this, guys, what do we do? Yeah. That's a good question. Look, if x starts out as negative, right? This one starts out as negative. The negative always goes out in front. If the number you're plugging in is negative, then that goes inside as well. If the number you're plugging in is positive, it goes like that. But if the negative is out front of x squared and it's not like it's not like this, what that's saying without the parenthesis is raise the number and then multiply by what? Yep.
But either way, if you square a number, only if it's inside the parentheses, if you square a number, it's positive. Mm-hmm. Only when it's outside.
Correct. Vito, question?
Oh, no, nothing. I was just like stretching my head.
Okay, sorry. All right.
This is actually like now, especially compared to the last year, I'm looking at this and I'm like, yes, this makes sense. I get this.
Good. Okay, good. I'm glad. You can do the other stuff too. All right, so what do I do first, guys? What do I do first? What do I do first? Where do I simplify? I'm going to square first. 2 squared is 4. So this becomes negative 4 plus 8, right? Plus 1. Now we add from left to right. What's negative 4 plus 8 plus 1? 5. So you would answer this as g of 2. When I plugged in 2 for x, what did I get out? 5. If I asked you to write that as an ordered pair, what would your ordered pair be? 2, 5. Perfect. All right, so now you guys are like, this is so easy. And then we throw something like this. It just becomes algebra. It's an algebra problem. G of x plus 2. Well, which function am I looking at first? The g. So the g of x plus 2. Write your function out. It's negative x squared plus 4x plus 1. Is that right? All right, now guys, instead of x, what am I plugging in? X plus 2. So watch how I write this. I have a negative, and then I have x plus 2, quantity squared, plus 4 times what? X plus 2 plus 1. Everybody in here can do this. Some of you are still distributing that 2 to the x and the positive 2 and telling me this is x squared plus 4. If you did it on the test, I marked it completely wrong. That's just wrong. So we can't do that. All right, so how do I go about simplifying this? What do I do first? Perfect. I'm going to write my negative out in front here. And then, perfect, Luna. I'm going to say x plus 2 times x plus 2. I should probably write the x. Can I go ahead and distribute here? Yeah. So plus 4x plus 8 plus 1. All right, so when I FOIL, does my negative go anywhere? No, it's going to stay out front here. Now FOIL, what's x times x? X squared. X times 2. And then 2 times x? So it's going to give me a total of, good, 4x. And then 2 times 2 is, yep. And then I have plus 4x plus 9. You don't have to combine there if you don't want to. You can wait till the end. Now, what do I need to do with that negative? I have to distribute it. So negative x squared minus 4x minus 4 plus 4x plus 9. What can we combine? Positive 4x and negative 4x. Good. And then what else? The negative 4 and the 9. So my answer, when I plug into the g function, x plus 2, what do I get out?
Negative x squared plus 5.
Perfect. Can I write that as an ordered pair? No. But if they ask you to plug in an expression, all you guys are doing is replacing the x value with the expression, and then you just use algebra. Super duper easy. Let's scoot along. All right, what would we do with 3? Instead of x, what do we plug in? T, right? So you have g of t. I hate using t's. What was it? Negative x squared plus 4x plus 1? Okay, so everywhere I see an x, what am I plugging in? There you go. So it's just negative t squared plus 4 times t plus 1. That's it. You're literally just replacing the letters. All right, I'm going to do... No. Next one, we'll do 2 and 3. Function notation, h of negative 2, f of negative 2, g of negative 2. That's just saying, hey, plug in this number for x and tell me what y equals. So I'm going to use the h function. So h of negative 2 equals 10 minus 3 times negative 2 what? Perfect. What do I do first? square. So I have 10 minus 3 times 4 now. 10 minus 12 now. H of 2 equals negative 2. Write that as an ordered pair. Negative 2, negative 2. Whatever's in the... Did I tell you about the format of the quiz? It's going to be multiple choice. It's going to be multiple choice. We haven't made it yet, but probably a majority of it, if not all. You guys need to see those. Here's the problem with multiple choice. You guys get all excited, but what happens with multiple choice? There's no what? There's no partial credit. A lot of times with the multiple choice generators we use, they make the 3 most common mistakes that you guys do, and those are one of the answer choices. So you got to be really careful. Are you still excited about the multiple choice part? All right, let's do number 3. H of x minus 1. All right, well, I only have one function on this page. What is it? 10 minus 3x squared. So what do I plug in this case for x? So I have 10 minus 3 times x minus 1 what? Squared. This is basic algebra. What do we do first? Yep, so 10 minus 3, and then I have x minus 1 times x minus 1. FOIL first, guys. So 10 minus 3 is hanging out here. What's x times x? Okay, x squared. What's x times negative 1? What's x times negative 1? Negative x, and then what's negative x times 1? Negative x, so how many negative x's do I have? Okay, so minus 2x, and then what's negative 1 times negative 1? What's negative 1 times negative 1? Plus 1. Now what? Distribute that negative 3. So I have negative 3x squared plus 6x minus 3. And then can I combine anything? Yep. So I have h of x minus 1 equals negative 3x squared plus 6x, what? Plus 7. Awesome. Very good. You guys are so smart. Okay. Now you're like, seriously? How many of you guys remember piecewise? Oh, I've heard of it. I kind of remember. All right, we're going to talk about graphing piecewise in like 2425. But right now we're just going to evaluate. What does it mean to evaluate again? Solve. So look, f of x is again a fancy way of saying y. But they gave me 2 different expressions. But they gave me what we call parameters. Okay? So what you're going to do is you're going to say, okay, which expression am I going to use? Well, how do you figure out what you're going to use? It's based upon the number itself. The first expression says use x squared minus 1 if the number is what? God bless you. Less than 0. The second one says you're going to use x minus 1 if the number is greater than or equal to. So let's look at A. If I have the number negative 1, where does negative 1 fall? It's less than 0. So you're going to say, oh, okay, this is the one I'm going to use because the number they want me to plug in is less than 0 based on the parameter. So I'm going to say, okay, negative 1 squared minus 1 is, 1 minus 1 is 0. So how would you write your answer? F of negative 1 equals what? 0. If I asked you to write it as an ordered pair, what would that be? Negative 1 comma 0. I want you guys to get used to that. So now I'm going to look at this value. They want me to plug in 0. Well, in the 2 parameters that they gave me, where does 0 fall? Is 0 less than 0? God bless you. Or is 0 greater than or equal to? So which expression are you going to use? The second one. Very good. So I'm going to say, okay, x minus 1. Okay, so 0 minus 1. What's my answer? Negative 1. So how do you write your answer? F of 0. When I plug in 0, what do I get out? Negative 1. If I were to write that as an ordered pair, what did I plug in for x? 0. What did I get out? Negative 1. You don't have to do that, guys. I'm just trying to get that in your mind for you to understand. All right, change this to a 4. F of 4. Yeah, just change it to 4. So where does 4 fall? Is 4 less than 0 or is 4 greater than or equal to? So I'm going to use the expression x minus 1. So where do I plug in the 4? So 4 minus 1 is 3. So f of 4. When I plug in 4 for x, what do I get out? Perfect. Write that as an ordered pair. 4, 3. You guys are brilliant. Moving along, I'm going to do 2, 4, and 5. You guys already know how to do this. Let's just refresh our memory. It says find where f of x equals 0. Well, f of x is the same way of saying what? Guys, we're finding y-intercepts. I can't spell. And we're finding x-intercepts. How do you write intercepts? As random letters or ordered pairs? Ordered pairs. Your y-intercept is when I plug in 0 for x, what do I get out for y? How do you do your x-intercept? Plug in 0 for y, what do you get out at x value? It's where the graph crosses the x and y. So let's talk about this. We're going to find the intercepts here. I'm going to plug in 0 for x. What's f of x the same way of saying? Y. So y equals, I'm going to plug in 0 for x. So 0 squared minus 5 times 0 plus 6. What's 0 squared? Minus 5 times 0. When I plug in 0 for x, guys, what do I get out for y? It's y equals 6. How do we always write intercepts? As ordered pairs. If you leave it as y equals 6, that's wrong. An intercept is always written with an x and y value. So now over here, I'm going to plug in 0 for what? Y. Well, f of x is the same thing as saying what? Y. So I'm going to say y equals x squared minus 5x plus 6. Guys, anytime you find the x-intercepts, 90% of the time you factor. How many answers should I have here? 2. How do I know I have 2? They're the exponents, x squared. Can you factor this? Yeah. Are they always going to factor? No. I mean, right now they will. But they won't always. Should you get imaginaries if you're finding where the graph crosses the x-axis? No. So how does this factor? To what? When you find in y, you plug in 0 for x. When you find x, you plug in 0 for y. You just set the equation, because f of x is the same way as saying y.
Oh, okay.
What is this, Anthony? Again, sorry. What'd you say?
I just answered it.
Yeah, I know. What? I didn't hear what you said.
X minus 3, X minus
Minus 3, perfect. Minus 2. So x equals 3 and x equals 2. So how many intercepts do I have, guys? 2. How do I write it? 2, 0, and 3, 0. Perfect. When you find intercepts, one of the points should be 0. If you're finding the x-intercept, you plug in 0 for y. If you're finding the y-intercept, you plug in 0 for x. Let's do 4. All right, we're going to do 4. I'm going to plug in 0 for x and see what I get out for y. Because f of x is the same way as saying y. Yes, ma'am.
Are you always, is it always going to be equal to 0?
Yeah.
Or you're, okay.
If you're finding the intercept, yeah. So I'm plugging in 0 for my x's. I'm finding y. So y equals 0 cubed. Whoa, what just happened? 0 cubed minus 81 times 0. What's 0 cubed? 0 minus 81 times 0 is... So when I plug in 0 for x, what do I get out for y? 0. Where is that point on a graph? The origin. Good. So now over here, I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to plug in 0 for what letter? Not the x's. I'm plugging in for y. F of x is a fancy way of saying y. So 0 equals x cubed minus 81x squared. How many answers should I get here, guys? 3. Why should I get 3? Highest exponent. Remember that, Alec. Yeah. Oh, I don't know why. Just, for funsies. Thank you. What's the first thing you look for when factoring, guys? GCF. This becomes x times what? x squared minus 81. Remind yourself at the beginning, oh, I should have 3 answers. That way you'll remember. 90% of the time when you guys get this wrong, it's because you forget the GCF. Can I factor this more? X plus what? And x minus 9. So how many answers do I have here? 3. I have x equals 0, x equals negative 9, and x equals positive 9. How do I write that as an ordered pair? 0, 0. What value comes first, x or y? X. What do I say x equals? Negative 9, comma 0. And then what? 9, 0. Good. Yep.
So you're only supposed to have one answer. Like the x anyway. You find out the y is at the origin. You just like
No, don't just assume it's always going to be like that.
because if the y intercepts the origin, the x intercepts the origin.
It doesn't have to be. In this case, it is because they both have an x, but like, it's not always going to be that one of them. Because when we get to imaginaries, Dylan, it could be where you have a y-intercept of 0, 0, and then you don't have, like, just don't go along and make the assumption it's always going to happen. There's always going to be an exception to something. All right, look at the last one. How many answers should I have here when I solve for x-intercepts? 1. How do you know that? Because it's x to the first power. If you guys are confused about, oh, I get so, just write down. I'm going to plug in 0 for x on this side. And over here, I'm going to plug in 0 for y. Tell yourself that from the beginning. So if you're going to take the function and plug in 0 for x, I have 5 minus 6 times 0 over 3. I'm going to get my y value. What's 6 times 0? So when you plug in, God bless you, 0 for x, what do you get out for y? Perfect. So on the other side, I'm not plugging in 0 for x, I'm plugging in 0 for what letter? Y. So it's 0 equals 5 minus 6x over 3. How do I solve this? Yep, multiply both sides by 3. 5 minus 6x equals 0. You can't see that, sorry. So now what? Subtract the 5, okay. You want to add the 6, either way. 5 equals 6x. Then I do what to both sides? Divide by 5. So x equals, I divide by 6, sorry. What does x equal here? 5 over 6. So how do I write that as an ordered pair? 5 over 6, comma, 0. Dylan, if you want an all the time kind of thing here, if you're finding x-intercepts, you can always just set the numerator equal to 0. Because when you plug in y for 0, you're going to multiply by the denominator. It's going to cancel it anyways. We'll learn about that later. All right, last thing. I want you guys to explain this to me. What does the black direction say? Find where f of x equals g of x. How would you figure that out? Plug what in? No, that's going to be combinations of functions. That's going to be a little harder later on. Make them what? Equal to each other. It says, when is this side the same as this one? Well, what would you do with the two equations I gave you? Make them equal to each other. So x squared plus 1 equals 3x minus x squared. We have a quadratic. Yes, I have x squareds and x's. When that's the case, we move everything where? To one side. So I'm going to add x squared. I'm going to subtract 3x. So I have how many x squareds? 2x squareds. Then what? Minus 3x plus 1 equals 0. A lot of you guys are still making the same mistake. I showed you the trick. We like the trick, but we forget to divide by the a term, so all your math is wrong. If you guys don't have the trick down, don't do it anymore. Multiply a times c. What's 2 times 1? 2. What are the factors of 1 that multiply to give you 2 and add to give you negative 3? -1 and -2. So write out 2x squared minus x minus 2x plus 1. If you can handle the trick, do it. But some of you keep making the same mistakes where you put it in parentheses and then forget to divide by the a term, and then it doesn't work. How do I do this? How do I solve this? What do I take out of the first group? Take out an x the way you wrote it. You can do it. That's fine. So what are we left with? 2x minus 1. What do I take out of the second group? A -1. And I'm left with 2x minus 1. So what are my two new parentheses? X minus 1 and 2x minus 1. And I said equal to 0. So what are my 2x values? So what is that saying? At those 2 points, if I plug in x equals 1 or x equals 1/2, what do those two equations become? What do they become? No. Like if I plug in 1, what happens to the left side of the equation, the right side of the equation? It's the same. It's equal. What about the last one? Where, at what points will these two equations become the same? Will they be equal? Well, equal means that the left-hand side of the equation is the same as the right. So x squared minus 1 equals -x squared plus x plus 2. I have a quadratic, so I move everything where? To one side. Okay, so I'm going to add x squared, subtract x, and minus 2. So add x squared, subtract x, and minus 2. So 2x squared minus x minus 3 equals 0. You guys agree? Okay, so 2 times -3 is -6. What are the factors of -6 that multiply to give you -6, add to give you -1? -3, positive 2. So 2x squared minus 3x plus 2x minus 3 equals 0. If you put them in different spots, if you put plus 2x and minus 3x, you get the same thing. Just got to make sure your signs are correct. But when I factor, what do I take out of the first two? Take out an x, I'm left with 2x minus 3. And my second group, what do I take out? A 1, so plus 1, I'm left with 2x minus 3. So I have x plus 1 and 2x minus 3 equals 0. What are my 2x values? -1 and x equals 3 over 2. So at x equals -1 and at x equals 3 over 2, if I plug those into each equation, f of x equals g of x. Yeah.
On the test, would we just leave that like as our answer, or do we have to put it in?
No, it's fine. If they ask you for an ordered pair, then you would have to plug it in and find out what y would equal. But they're not asking that. I was just showing you on that when you get out like f of 1 equals 4, you're actually finding an ordered pair.